My name is Nicole Olson, and this is my action research plan for Azusa Pacific University. This is my first year teaching, and I was actually lucky enough to find an internship at Lakeside High School in Lake Elsinore, California. I teach 5 classes of integrated math, which is a bridge course between Algebra 1 and Geometry. The more time I spent in the classroom with my students, the more time I became aware of my students' very poor language. I would say something to them about what they were saying, and oftentimes they didn't even realize the words they had said. Their response would usually be, "Wait, what did I say? I didn't cuss." I heard other teachers saying they had the same problem with students in their own classrooms and around campus in general. With students not even know they're cursing when they do it, and this happening all around campus, not just in my classroom, I decided to create a competition between my class periods by keeping track of how many curse words were said in each period and by comparing the results at the end of 2 weeks. Before I introduced the competition to the classroom, I kept track of my students on how many times they cursed per class period so I would have a baseline to compare it to at the end of the competition. Once I introduced the competition to the classes and we began keeping track of curse words, I noticed a dramatic change in my students' language. They began catching themselves when they were cursing and covering their hands over their mouths like they knew they said something wrong. They also began replacing curse words with less offensive words such as fudge or shoot. Along with altering the language they spoke a little, they also caught each other with these curse words and knew that they had to go and put a mark on the board. I also noticed that some students were really competitive and wanted to win this competition, so they would try to sneak up to the board when I was busy with a student and erase the tally marks from their own class period and add them to other class periods so their class would be in the lead and therefore win the competition. Because of this, I had to keep track on my own every day, much like I did before the competition began, and adjust the marks on the board so students can see where they were ranking. At the end of the 2 weeks, I could tell that the students clearly decreased the amount of times they cursed per class. With the exception of 6th period, most of the class periods were cursing about 25 times over the span of 2 weeks, which was their average at the beginning per class period. The winning class period elected to have a potluck at the end of it all. I continued to keep track of my students cursing after the competition ended without their knowledge. I wanted to see if the competition made any difference or if they would fall back into their old habits. On average, there was a decrease per class period per day of about 3 to 5 curse words in the week following the competition. I feel that if I continued to keep track, this number would climb back to its original state. So in the future, if I try this competition again, I think I would introduce it as I did this first time, but continue to have it randomly throughout the school year. And without telling them. This way the students will never know when I'll be holding a competition, which means they'll always have to be watching their language. I can just surprise them at the end of a couple weeks and be like, "Oh, I held this competition and this was a winning class period, so this is what you get." Overall, I enjoyed the experience of the action research plan, and I plan on trying to do the same thing with my students next year. But like I said, don't always let them know when we're having a competition.